I'm Patty Henning, and I'm in the back of our studio, and today we're going to demonstrate some countertop applications. The paints that we do carry in here will adhere right to Formica laminate countertops just like this, and I thought this would be a perfect example. We've had it in the back studio for a couple years now, and it's this nice, beautiful forest green. So what I've done is I've taped 3 sections just to kind of show a couple different simple enough finishes that you can do with the products. The company, one of the companies that we carry, Reclaim, does have a countertop system. It's basically kind of a single color. It does a simple app for really 1, 2, 3, and you're done. Kind of approaches. A lot of times we get people though that when they see some of the boards that we've done like this, they like these a lot more and they want to have it a little more authentic looking to like a real countertop finish. So that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to do one where it kind of shows you how to start to get to this stone kind of look. We'll have one that looks kind of cementy and then one that just shows you how you can apply these kind of different colors and get like a real cool effect. As always, when you start, you want to really make sure that you use a good cleaner on your surface. I didn't have to sand it or scuff it, anything like that. Just cleaned it with some spick and span, made sure everything was off of it, taped it, and then last night I rolled out the textured base coat by Caramel, which is what we're going to use. I left one section to demo so that we can see it in action. But it's the same paint, the one that I always like to say that is my go-to paint because it's really strong. Here I did the black peppercorn, here I did the pebble, or it's like a putty color, and then in the middle I'm going to do the black again. So this paint's the one that's really thick. It's like peanut butter. You can thin it down, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it, but for counters and for like floor tile, marble tile, stuff like that, we just keep it full strength just like this. We don't water it down. And you want to use one of these low nap whiz rollers that has a little bit of texture and just gets them in your tray, and you just start laying your first coat on. So if this was my counter, I wouldn't start in the middle. Obviously I'd start at one end. And you don't go in lines like straight up and down. You just kind of randomly roll this little guy around. And one thing to take note of is you want to just be light-handed on your roller. You can't really get real tough and tense and roll, or this little guy will turn into a little skinny thing, and then he's not real effective. So if that happens, you just get a little bit of water and you fluff them back out. But you want to just keep a light hand, and you want to lay a first coat of a texture. And this is what I did on the front. We have some entry tile as you come into the store, and we taped half of it off 2 springs ago, and it was ceramic tile, and we rolled 2 coats of this on, and then when it was dry we just used like a chalk paint over it. So that first section there, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use like a different paint over it and then sand it back so you get a little bit of this black coming through. So you just get your coat on. Okay, and then when you get to edges, like if you have little backsplashes, sometimes people have that couple inches of, that, you can roll him. And then when you get close to your edges, you just want to take a chip brush and you just kind of jam it in. And you can scrub it and then just kind of bounce it so it has a little bit of a stipple and you're not leaving a super thick run there. So we'll get that on. And this doesn't take that long to dry. If you were doing it at home, within, probably 2 hours, you could effectively go back on and roll a second coat. Now for this square here, we're just doing 1 coat, 100% coverage. Because the second coat, when we do this paint, we're using a couple different colors, and we're going to use a credit card scraper. For the first square, I laid 2 coats on last night, doing just like this. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to go over it with a thinner paint. So that'll be a different look. We're using a gray, so it mimics like a cement. And then on this last one, we're going to use this plaster, now this stuff doesn't adhere to any surface, so it really does need that textured base coat underneath. But this one actually is a really cool, we've used this before in some of the tapings that we've done. It just gives a nice little texture, and for some people that want, it's real whippy, but this won't stick on your Formica on its own. So that's why I have this first coat down. And this will just kind of go on the same way. We're just going to roll a coat over this textured base coat. And this will dry up pretty quick as well. And same thing, I always have these nice little cheap chippy brushes. They're perfect for bouncing in your product. Okay, like that. And then just roll right up to your edge. And for simple counter finishes, if you're just looking at, like, you have a purple countertop and you want to take it black, that textured paint, 2 coats, and then just a real light sanding so you knock down any little parts that are kind of picky, and then some good top coating over it is really a nice finish. We used to do that in customers' homes, or, you know, some of the other colors if somebody just wants white or if they just want like a red. You don't have to get elaborate and do all these, you know, multi-layers with different products, but this is just a fun way and a perfect way, because we can demo it on this tape here, to be able to show people how to start doing this yourself, where you don't have to come and take a workshop. We do offer a workshop for this, but, you know, it's not that it really is necessary if you can just kind of see it in action like this. So that's why we're doing this. Okay, so you get this first coat on, and then we'll let everything dry. Am I good? I'm pretty good. Okay, we'll go like that. We'll cheat a little bit. Okay. Okay. So there's my first coat on here. This one is a second coat. That one's already 2 coated. So we're going to let these dry. We're going to go to a quick break, and when we return, we'll show you how to finish up these countertop finishes.
My name is Cheryl Steinhurst. My husband and I are owners of Steiny's Tavern. We're located on the northwest corner of 25 Mile and Shelby Road. We offer a unique dining experience from our restaurant to our off-site catering. Everything we make is from scratch. We utilize Michigan-made products whenever possible. We're open 7 days a week. We offer daily lunch and dinner specials, and we carry the most craft beers on draft in all of Macomb County. So plan on coming out to Steiny's Tavern, where you come for the food and stay for the party.
Okay, we're back. While we were drying these 2 here, I kind of took a jump start and took this, it's called Gorgeous Gray from Cottage Paint. It's a smoother paint, and it's a great paint that can go over this textured base coat. The chalk paints can as well. And then if you sand back, you can get a little bit of that black coming through. But I wanted to get most of this on just so that part of it can dry, and so that we can focus more on the other 2 sections. So if you're going to do just a textured base coat and then a color over top, this is kind of how you would do it. You could roll it using the same kind of roller, just randomly. You could water the paint down and not have it be as opaque. You could have it be a little sheer. I'm going to leave just a little bit of it coming through. And then when it dries, you would take just like a 180 grit sandpaper and pop the color coming through. So that's what we're going to do. We'll let this dry on its own, and then we'll hit it a little bit with the dryer when we're drying the other 2. Okay, so that's that one. Now back to these other 2 we started. We'll do this plaster one first because it's a little bit quicker. And when your first layer is dry, it does have texture. I mean, it has like a little plaster, like a grainy stone in it. The second coat, so that you don't have a counter that's real ruddy like this, we use like a scraper. You can use a credit card blade. These pink scrapers work great. We carry these. Home Depot has them. And what you do is you just get a little bit on your blade and you do kind of a scraping, like if you're frosting a cake. And again, you can go in different directions. And I don't know if you can get up close on this, but what happens with this plaster, and you can use this on walls as well, when you do a scraping motion with this material, it breaks the plaster particles that are inside, and it creates like a natural stone. It's like a cool brownish earthy tone, so it plays against this light color of the plaster. So it creates its own depth and dimension on its own. It's not like you have to do it, which is why it's a real pretty finish. I mean, you could leave this when we're done, which is what we'll do. We'll just give it a quick little scuff once it dries and go right to putting multiple top coats on it so that we could use it for our counter finish. And when you see it up close, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's just a really, really pretty finish. I love this two-step for wall finishes as well. Very do-it-yourself friendly, nice and durable. It's not going to fall off or crumble off your walls. And it's not real, you know, when you touch it, it's not like it scrapes your skin or it's like too textury or ruddy. It just gives the perception that it has a lot of depth. So it's pretty on countertops too. We've had customers do this where they keep their bathroom nice and airy. They keep the cupboards white and they just want the counters real light and neutral, but they don't just want to have them like white, which I don't blame them. So this is like a great option, and it's easy. And you don't need a lot, as you can see. I mean, this comes in, well, they have it in gallons for walls, but we have it in smalls as well. And I mean, one would do, you know, your whole counter. So then you get your edge, same way, and you let it dry. And actually, this kind of layer will dry much quicker than the first because the first has that texture, and this one is just like a tight scraping. Okay, so let's use the other option to a scraper, which is called a finger. Okay, so that's this one. That's one way you could use the products. The other thing we're going to do on that black textured base coat is show how you can use a couple different colors. And I won't even need this much, but we have it right here. And here I'm going to use like the brown, the hazelnut, and more of the putty. And you just take, you know, maybe I'll take the brown and a little bit of that other color on it, and you just start doing the same thing with a scraper. Now you can do all three colors at the same time, or you could try to put like one color on first and then lay some other ones on top of it. But the one thing you don't want to do is just put them on and do these big long drags, okay? So I'm going to just mix these colors up. And I don't use multiple blades, I just have everything on the same so it mixes together nicely. Okay. Get a good arm workout doing this. Maybe we'll just do this much so that I can make sure everything gets dried and I can do the rest of it. You good with that? Yep. Okay, and then once that's on, what you can do is you can kind of come back with one of the colors and kind of, you're kind of just going right over what you had. And it just adds a little bit of like more color, like shadowing. If you drag your blade, it kind of does some cool stuff. Probably the thing with this is you just can't really think about what you're doing. You just let your, you know, It looks ugly now, but it'll look nice when it's done. And I'm just going to go with what I have, this color. And then this will have to dry as well. And then really, I mean, you could keep doing layers of this until you fiddle with it and like it, but this is typically how I would do things. I mean, when we've shown them and we've done workshops, we just do this one layer of dragging and building and letting it just kind of float on top. And then when it dries, there's a cool little thing you can do before you put the top coat on it. So hopefully from this, you can kind of get the idea of how this process would work. But I mean, there's a lot of different colors, and you can see just from floating a little bit of red in what would happen. You know, I mean, that hazelnut color is kind of yellowy, and just keeping your blade flat at the very end and dragging it just creates like really cool texture. And you don't have to worry too much about any bumpy parts or stuff like that, because before we put the top coat on it, we would give it a light sanding, so you won't feel stuff like that. Okay, so we're gonna let this dry as well, and then we'll come back and we'll just show you how you would wrap up, like what top coats to use, stuff like that. And we'll go to commercial.
A&A Recycling Center is Michigan's premier parts recycling center that saves you money while protecting the environment. We pay top dollar for late model junk cars, SUVs, and trucks. All types, all models, both foreign and domestic. Search our online inventory to find used and refurbished parts. Need quick cash? Don't throw away your junk, because your scrap metal is worth money. Selling has never been easier with our easy drive-on, drive-off scale. Visit A&A Recycling Center today.
Okay, we are back. This guy's dry. This one is dry, and our stone is dry as well. So we're going to just do a quick, how would you go from this step? If you're doing the paint over the texture, I would take like a 180 grit. All we're going to do here is we're going to give this countertop a light sand. I'm just going to do a little section so I can show you. Okay. And the sanding is twofold. The first thing it does is when you touch your counter, you're not going to have any like little sharp nibbies or little stony kind of things that can happen when you roll out a paint. And what it also does is, from sanding the top paint, kind of compresses it into that textured paint. And if I took like a damp rag just to show you, what it'll also do is it pops that black through the gray. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, is to get like a dimensional thing going. Okay, so this is how you would tackle this one. You would just sand your whole surface. You could get like a little shop vac or a little, you know, dusty broom, clean it off, give it a wipe down, let it dry good, and then you could go right to top coating. This one here, what I like to do is, it just really needs a fine sand because we bladed that on, so that kind of knocks down any objects that are sticking up. But I do give this one a little bit of a light sand as well, just because the one thing you don't want to do is finish your counter and top coat it, and then when you're running your hands over it or you're wiping it, you have something that's sticking up that's driving you crazy. So you can avoid that by getting a little piece of sandpaper and giving it just a nice little fine sand right over the top. Okay, and then I would just wipe that dust off as well. Okay, now this one could be ready to go. Any of these you can continue on where when it dries you can put a glaze over it if you want to add another bit of color. These we're just going to kind of leave the way they are. But what I would like to show with this one, because this is a really cool one where you can take these Krylon webbing cans. You can find them at Michael's. We don't have them here, but they come in like gold, black, white, silver, and they're a great way to shoot veins. But I would really highly advise that you take it outside with cardboard and really practice with it first, because they can be really crazy. Okay, so you got to shake them really good, and you got to just have like a real light hand. But when you wiggle and spray, if you can see, it creates like a cool veining effect. So when these counters are all done, what we've done in the workshops, and I've done it in customers' homes before, is you can just, like if I did it on the black here, you'll be able to see better, because I'm going to paint over this later, but I think you can get that versus over here, how it'll just show. And if there's an area that you don't like, you just got to sand it really quick as soon as it gets on there, because it will dry. And if you don't like it, you're going to have to roll your paint back over it. But that's a really cool way of making something look authentic. I can't even faux veins, and if I have to do veins, that's how I like to do it, is I cheat with these little spray cans. And the last one, what we do here is, this one just gets like a nice little fine sand with a 220. Again, just to knock down anything that might be sticking up. Okay, and then with this type of finish, you're really going to need to stick to a top coat that's water-based, because if you use anything that's oil-based over it, it will yellow up. And you know, this color's nice and authentic as a natural. The company that makes the countertop finishes does have a sealer that was created just for their countertops, super durable, indoor, outdoor, water-based. It's not going to yellow. That's what I would use on this. This is not dry enough though. I mean, I would let it really dry out good for a day, and then you would roll on your sealer. And I would do multiple coats. If it's high use, you know, your kid's bathroom, you know, I'd probably do 3 coats of a top coat, spread it out. For these kind of finishes here, and especially because we're going to be using this probably later today, because I know how we are here, I would use the wipe-on poly. I did this on our floor in the store here on tile, if you can believe it, and it's in the entry where we come and go. And I opted for this way because the wipe-on polys are thinner. This one is oil-based, so you want to wear gloves. But the nice thing about it is it dries pretty quick, and you can use it. So for us here, where it was our entryway and we had to have people coming and going, I knew that we couldn't rope something off that needed, you know, required time to dry. So I really like this one. This one's a great go-to. Plus I love the fact that I can just wipe it on like this. What you have to remember with this though is you have to build multiple coats, because it's a thinner, lighter weight polyurethane. So, you know, think of it as like 2 coats applied equals like 1 coat of a full strength poly. But you can see already, if you can get close up on that, you know, it'll bring your color back to life. And, you know, I'll probably do within a day, maybe 4 coats over this whole counter with this, except for the white one. And we'll be good to go. We'll be able to use this, obviously not cut on it. You know, you're going to have to follow the same rules as your Formica on laminates, but it'll be washable, you know, scrubbable, and it'll be a nice little finish for a pretty affordable price instead of having to swap out your counters. Okay, so here you can see the before and after, or at least it's got a little bit of that top coat so that it can pop what the finish is going to look like. You know, hopefully from today's show and episode you could see how to use these products, where you can get a better idea of jumping in yourself. If you're still a little apprehensive, you could always come in and take one of our workshops or sign up for a private. But we can always help guide you with some of the boards we have. We've got a lot of different color combinations, and we could advise you what colors to use, and you know, what top coats to use for your project. And hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on Shelby DIY.